Some people do not want to defeat you physically. They want to disturb you internally. They study reactions, not strength. They listen for emotional cracks, not logic. Evil people rarely attack directly. They provoke, they test. They wait for you to expose your weaknesses through anger, explanation, or desperation. And the moment you react emotionally, you hand them control. Stoicism was never about weakness or passivity. It was designed for men who lived in hostile worlds where betrayal was common and safety was never guaranteed. Its purpose was simple: to make you untouchable from the inside. Because once your inner world is fortified, no external force can truly damage you. The most dangerous thing to an evil person is not confrontation. It is immunity. When insults fail, manipulation collapses. When guilt cannot move you, control dissolves. And when fear no longer governs your decisions, power shifts silently. This video is not about fighting evil people. It is about becoming so internally strong that they lose access to you entirely. When that happens, harm becomes impossible and dominance becomes effortless. Most people believe power is loud. Stoics understood that true power is quiet. Evil thrives on emotional reactions because reactions reveal attachment. Anger exposes insecurity. Defensiveness signals dependency. Over-explaining shows fear of judgment. Stoicism removes these entry points. Strength, in Stoic terms, is self-governance. If no one can dictate your emotional state, no one controls you. This is why Stoics train themselves to pause before reacting, to observe before responding, and to detach before engaging. They understood that domination begins internally. Evil people rely on chaos, confusion, and emotional leverage. Stoic discipline creates clarity, predictability within oneself, and independence from external approval. When your values are fixed and your emotions disciplined, manipulation becomes ineffective. This is not emotional suppression. It is emotional mastery. You still feel. You simply choose not to surrender control. Stoicism is not about becoming cold. It is about becoming unmovable. And an unmovable man cannot be harmed. Principle 1. Emotional mastery. The first defense against harmful people is emotional mastery. Evil cannot operate where emotions are governed. Every manipulator searches for predictable reactions. They provoke anger, jealousy, guilt, or fear because these emotions cloud judgment and force impulsive decisions. Stoicism teaches that emotions are signals, not commands. Feeling anger does not require acting on it. Feeling fear does not require retreat. Feeling insulted does not require retaliation. The moment you separate feeling from action, you reclaim authority over yourself. An emotionally mastered man becomes unreadable. His calm confuses aggressors. His restraint frustrates manipulators. His silence unsettles those who rely on emotional chaos. He does not deny emotions. He observes them. He allows them to pass without granting them power. This mastery requires discipline. You pause before speaking. You breathe before reacting. You analyze instead of exploding. This creates space between stimulus and response. In that space, freedom exists. Evil people grow desperate when they cannot trigger you. They escalate tactics hoping to provoke emotion. But emotional mastery means you do not play their game. You remain grounded, composed, and controlled. When they fail to access your emotions, they lose influence. Emotional mastery is not just protection. It is dominance through restraint. Principle 2. Unpredictability. Evil people depend on predictability. They observe patterns, study habits, and anticipate reactions. Predictability gives them leverage. Stoicism breaks this advantage through controlled unpredictability. This does not mean chaos or inconsistency. It means refusing to react in expected ways. When they expect anger, you offer calm. When they expect defense, you offer silence. When they expect explanation, you offer detachment. This confuses their strategy and destabilizes their confidence. Stoic unpredictability comes from internal alignment, not emotional randomness. Because your actions are guided by principle rather than impulse, outsiders cannot map your behavior easily. You do not follow emotional scripts. You act deliberately. Unpredictability also means limiting access to your internal world. You do not reveal plans prematurely. You do not explain motivations unnecessarily. You do not announce boundaries loudly. You enforce them quietly. Evil people lose power when they cannot forecast outcomes. Their manipulation requires certainty. Stoic unpredictability removes it. When your reactions are governed by reason rather than emotion, you become strategically opaque. This creates psychological distance. They hesitate. they miscalculate, they withdraw. You do not need to confront them directly. Your controlled unpredictability dismantles their influence without confrontation. When they cannot predict you, they cannot control you. Principle 3. Detachment from validation. The need for validation is one of the most exploited weaknesses. Evil people manipulate approval, rejection, praise, and shame to control behavior. Stoicism eliminates this vulnerability through internal validation. A Stoic measures himself by his principles, not by external applause. He does not need agreement to feel secure. He does not need praise to feel worthy. He does not fear criticism because his self-respect is internally sourced. When you detach from validation, insults lose weight. Manipulative praise loses effect. Social pressure becomes irrelevant. Evil people cannot reward or punish what does not depend on them. This detachment does not mean arrogance or isolation. It means independence. You still listen, you still learn, but you do not submit your identity to external judgment. Stoicism teaches that dignity comes from alignment with values. If your actions reflect integrity, approval becomes unnecessary. If your intentions are clear, misunderstanding becomes tolerable. Evil people attempt to destabilize identity. Detachment makes this impossible. You no longer negotiate your worth. You no longer explain yourself to those who seek leverage. When validation is removed from the equation, manipulation collapses. The Stoic stands firm, unaffected, and self-sustained. Principle 4. Emotional distance and boundaries. Closeness without boundaries invites harm. Stoicism teaches emotional distance as protection, not coldness. You can be respectful without being accessible. You can be present without being exposed. Evil people seek emotional proximity to influence behavior. They use familiarity to bypass logic. Boundaries prevent this access. A Stoic sets limits quietly and enforces them consistently. Emotional distance means not sharing vulnerabilities with unproven individuals. It means observing behavior over time rather than trusting words. It means disengaging when patterns reveal manipulation. Boundaries are not negotiations, they are standards. You do not explain them excessively, you do not justify them emotionally, you enforce them through action. This creates safety. When emotional distance exists, provocations fail. Attempts to guilt you fail. Pressure loses force. You remain composed and grounded. Stoicism emphasizes self-preservation without hostility. You do not need to attack, you simply withdraw access. Evil people lose influence when they cannot reach your emotional core. Distance does not mean isolation, it means selective engagement. You choose who earns closeness. You decide who receives access. When boundaries are respected, peace follows. When they are violated, distance restores order. Emotional distance is not weakness, it is strategic clarity. Principle 5. Silence as strategy. Silence is one of the most misunderstood forms of strength. Evil people rely on information, reaction, and dialogue to manipulate outcomes. Silence denies them all three. Stoicism values restraint in speech. Not every accusation deserves response. Not every insult requires defense. Not every misunderstanding demands correction. Silence preserves energy and denies leverage. When you remain silent, others reveal themselves. They fill the space with assumptions, projections, and mistakes. This provides clarity without effort. Silence also prevents self-betrayal. Speaking emotionally often exposes vulnerabilities. Silence protects them. It creates psychological advantage. A Stoic does not rush to explain. He allows actions to speak. He trusts time more than argument. Silence communicates confidence and control. Evil people become uncomfortable when silence replaces reaction. They escalate, seeking response, but continued restraint weakens their position. Silence is not avoidance, it is discipline. You choose when speech is necessary. You choose when silence is stronger. Most battles are won by refusing to fight. When words are scarce, they gain weight. When silence is consistent, it commands respect. Stoicism teaches that speech should be intentional, not reactive. Silence preserves power and protects peace. Principle 6. Purpose alignment. A man aligned with purpose is difficult to manipulate. Purpose creates direction. Direction creates resilience. Evil people exploit confusion and aimlessness. Stoicism counters this through clarity of purpose. When your actions serve a higher internal standard, distractions lose power. Provocation becomes irrelevant. You are not easily diverted from your path. Purpose anchors decision-making. You ask whether engagement serves your values or wastes energy. If it does not serve, you disengage without resentment. Stoicism teaches that meaning is chosen, not assigned. You define your mission, you act accordingly. External chaos does not disrupt internal alignment. Evil people lose influence over those who are internally driven. They cannot tempt you with distractions or threaten you with discomfort. Your purpose absorbs pressure. Alignment also strengthens endurance. When challenges arise, you endure without complaint. You understand hardship as part of growth. Purpose creates immunity. It narrows focus. It strengthens resolve. When your life has direction, manipulation has no entry point. Stoic purpose transforms obstacles into training. When aligned, you move forward unaffected, grounded, and unshaken. Principle 7. Forgive but remember. Forgiveness in Stoicism is not forgetfulness. It is release without ignorance. You let go of resentment, but you retain memory. This prevents emotional burden while preserving wisdom. Holding grudges poisons the mind. It ties you to past harm. Forgiveness frees you internally, but forgetting patterns invites repetition. Stoicism teaches clear perception. You observe behavior objectively. You adjust boundaries accordingly. Forgiveness allows peace. Memory ensures protection. You do not seek revenge. You do not dwell on injury. You simply learn and adapt. This prevents bitterness while maintaining vigilance. Evil people expect emotional entanglement. Forgiveness removes emotional leverage. Remembering prevents future access. This balance requires maturity. You neither obsess nor ignore. You move forward informed, not wounded. Forgiveness is strength. Memory is intelligence. Combined, they create resilience. You are not obligated to trust again. You are obligated to protect yourself. Stoicism teaches mercy without naivety. When forgiveness clears the mind and memory sharpens judgment, you remain calm and prepared. This is dominance without hostility, peace without vulnerability. Stoicism is not about fighting evil people. It is about becoming unreachable to them. When emotions are mastered, validation is irrelevant. Boundaries are firm and purpose is clear. Harm loses its power. True strength is silent. True dominance is internal. When you govern yourself, no one else can. This path requires discipline, restraint, and clarity, but it rewards you with peace, resilience, and authority over your own life. If this philosophy resonates with you, affirm it. Write in the comments, "I govern myself." Let it mark your commitment to inner strength. Remain calm. Remain disciplined. Remain unmovable. When the world cannot shake you, you have already won.